Hi. Okay, so we're going to go through all the Mahshavet stuff now. We'll see, you may divide it into a couple of tapes. We'll see how long it takes. And play it, understand it. You have a question, ask me. And again, when you play it, stop it, try to understand what's going on. Don't try to understand everything at once. Okay, we're starting with Mahshavet and Munav Gula number one. So here there are six psukim in Parshat Lech Lecha, and these psukim discuss the promise that Hashem made to Abraham that he is going to have a child. You know, he went childless for many, many years. And then if you look in Pasuk Hey, V'yatzei Yotza Achutza, Vayomer HaBeitna Shamayim U'Sefar Kochavim, Intuchal L'Sparotam, Vayomer Lo Ko Yezarecha. Took him outside. Go ahead and look up to the skies, count the stars. That's how many children you're going to have. And then the pasuk I want to zero in on is pasuk vav. Ve'min b'Hashem, he believed in Hashem, v'yachshavdeha lo tzedakah, and it was counted to him to be his righteousness. So if you look at Rashi, Rashi says ve'min b'Hashem, lo sha'al lo otzasot, that he did not ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu for any sign. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says you're going to have a child. As far as Abraham was concerned, it's money in the bank. It's going to happen. V'yachshavdeha lo tzedakah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu kashva Avram l'schut l'saka al emunah shebimba. And but because he believed in Hashem, because Avram Avinu believed in Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu thought that to be a very, very positive thing. That he did not ask for any signs or any sort of who knows what, but just believed HaKadosh Baruch Hu with his word. The Rambam asks the question, why should this be considered like brownie points for Avram? Why would he not believe Hashem? Hashem comes and tells you you're going to have a baby. Of course you're going to believe Hashem. Why if it was considered to be righteousness on Avram's part that he believed in God? Of course he believes in God. So the Cheskuni comes along and reworks the pasuk. He says doesn't mean that Baruch Hu thought, wow, Avram Avinu is really great. He believes in me. Because Ramban is right. Of course he believes in Hashem. Hashem tells him he's going to have a baby. Of course he's going to believe him. But what's Vayachshvel lo tzaka? Avraham chashab lo la'atzmo she'en HaKadosh Baruch Hu noten lo b'schuto zera el tzaka osalo. Vayachshvel lo tzaka, this is all talking about Avraham. Avraham believed God, and Avraham thought this to be a tremendous amount of righteousness on God's part. Not that the way Rashi explains it, that Hashem thought it was righteousness on Avram's part for believing him. Ramban says, of course he believes him. Because Kuni explains, that Avram, not only did Avram believe in Hashem, but he thought that this was like, wow, HaKadosh Baruch Hu really did something over and above. It's very interesting, two pshatim in that pasuk. Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch comes, and he makes a very important point about Ve'amin. Ve'amin doesn't mean that you believe in somebody. If Elisha comes through the door and he goes ahead and he says, the Rams won the Super Bowl. Okay, I can believe Elisha. He says that means that doesn't mean emunah. When you believe somebody, you just say, okay, he knows more than I do. So I'm going to sort of rely on what he says. He saw the game. I didn't see the game. He says the Rams won. So I'm going to believe him. That doesn't mean emunah here. Here it means something very, very different. So I'm reading the English. Belief in is not just an intellectual belief that one suspends their opinion because of someone else's opinion. The real meaning of emunah is to anchor our lives to Hashem, to rely upon Him in thought and in deed, and to gain our strength from Him and to walk after Him. Emunah means you're in 100%. Doesn't mean that you believe Hashem. You believe Hashem. Hashem says something, I believe Him. Elisha said the rest of the Super Bowl, I'm going to believe Him. But it means to totally suspend your judgment in terms of His judgment and to go ahead, and I love these words, to anchor our lives to Hashem. That's the first thing I want you to know, the first concept I want you to know about emunah. From there, hold on. Let's go to the next sheet. Let me just get it up here a second. I had it here before. Here we go. Emunah gulatzu. Okay. So the question which we go ahead and tackle now is, when I have emunah, should it just be I believe, or is himro'i lachkor b'shvil agil emunah? Do I have the right or even the obligation to go ahead and to try to engage myself in philosophy, trying to understand God, how God exists, or do I just have to take it as a given? Um, so you have basically three opinions. I'm not going to go in the order that's on the sheet. I'm going to go a little bit out of order as we did in class. I'm going to start with opinion number two, Rabbi Nachman Breslov. So I have it in English here also. You can read it. The correct way to worship Hashem is to do so completely without any chachmot, no trickery. There are those scientists, philosophers who feels that it's best to use other disciplines in order to reach a belief in Hashem. But for us, the right thing is to attain emunah through performance of mitzvot and complete and unadulterated faith. It is forbidden to engage in other disciplines, save for a big tzaddik. So according to Rav Nachman Breslov, we should have what's called emunat mima, which is just have pure faith. You go ahead, you do the mitzvot, you get into the swing of things, and you believe, and you go ahead and you just have belief in Hashem, and that's the way you live your life. It's not a matter of sitting down with any great philosophical works, Aristotle and Plato, and start to ponder the universe, but rather, according to Blitz of Rav, that you need just pure emunah, what's called emunah tmima. When I taught this to you, I mentioned to you my grandmother, Allah Shalom, who did not have very much of a Jewish education at all, but she had the most emunah in the whole wide world. Believe me, she did not sit down to learn any philosophy. I was not aware of the origins and theology of Christianity or Islam and compared them to Judaism. She just knew she grew up in a Jewish home. She grew up in a home that was Shomer Torah and Mitzvot, and she had 100% faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Some people can do that. Rav Sa'ad Gaon goes ahead and he really disagrees. He is what's called a rationalist, which means he says everything in our religion makes sense. And therefore, people should go ahead and people should, by all means, study. Not to be scared of it. You should study Emunah and understand faith of God because everything it all makes sense. And therefore, there's no stira, there's no contradiction between Torah and science. Rather, science just enhances Torah. It's not that because sometimes you look at science as being the ultimate discipline where I need proof for everything. And Torah is based upon faith. She says the two are not contradictory. You have Torah and you have science. They complement each other. The Torah is not against science, and science is not against the Torah. And we are required to engage in scientific study. We are required to try to understand what we can. What the Torah doesn't allow is for us to go ahead and to abandon Torah just after running after science and demanding proofs for everything. But rather, a person has the ability and has the obligation as they are growing and studying Torah to also think about it and to also come to rational understanding and rational conclusions. And the whole idea of, again, one can question if one can understand the truths of the Torah through their own rational abilities. So why did the prophets find it necessary to give us guidance? So we have a couple of answers. Because if we just is up to our own logical abilities, it may take a very long time. It may spend many, many years chasing after false beliefs, false theologies, and making very desperate mistakes. It could be very, very hard to come by. So we need guidance along our way. But with that guidance, doesn't mean to abandon my logical thought. So in conclusion, receive the Torah we receive the truth with the help of the Torah without any doubts. Once we receive and accept it, it is incumbent upon us to use scientific method and logic to reaffirm what we know from the Torah. So Rav Sa'ad Gaon is in contradiction to Rav Nachman Breslov. Nachman Breslov says, don't use the science, don't use your own rational thought, just go ahead and do mitzvahs, and it's going to be fine. And you have Rav Sa'ad Gaon says, no, just the opposite, that everything is rational and you should use your own logical and intellectual abilities to come to the conclusions. Now let's go back to the Kuzari. The Kuzari, who's Rav Yehuda Halevi, starts us by saying that the highest level is what Rav Nachman Breslov says. And again, Kuzari is way before Rav Nachman Breslov, but he has the same idea. That's the highest level. But you know what? Not everybody is there. Not everybody can just say, I have a munah, and say that I need no further proofs and no further discussion. And the Kusari realizes that. And therefore, he says that if you cannot just have emunat mivah, you should go ahead and you should take the routes of investigation, of scientific study, and of pondering, etc., etc., etc. So we have three dayouts. On the one hand, is Nachman Bezlov. On the other hand, Asad Jagon and the Kusari in the middle. Okay, I'm going to start the first tape over here so that I get it out to you. And we're going to stop recording now.